Hi, thanks for joining me here. Be aware that the clip that you just saw, the sound you heard was not the original pickups in this guitar. Today we're going to have a look at the Squier 40th anniversary in blonde. Now that guitar is very similar to the classic Vibe, so you could also see this review as a review for the classic Vibe. Now one thing I usually wonder about, and maybe I had issues with myself in the past, is the neck pickup maybe too muddy or too dark in a Telecaster? Is the bridge pickup too spiky or too trebly or whatever? Now, what I'm trying to do here is to give you as much facts and numbers and information about the pickups, the neck, the truss rod, the frets, whatever, as I can, so you can buy a guitar that is good for you. Now, this takes quite a bit of time. And I would like to ask you for 1 second of your time and push the subscribe button below the screen. It would really help me a lot, and I thank you very much for that. Thanks. Now, of course, we will test the sound of this guitar. We will use different amps, different music styles. I may not like them all, you may not like them all, but that way you get a good idea of what a guitar can do. And last but not least, I buy guitars with my own money, so my opinion is also my own opinion. Okay, let's check out a few things about this guitar. It's made in Indonesia. When I received the guitar, I was a bit surprised because on the picture I saw a guitar with a beautiful, soft blonde front. And when I received the guitar, I saw a guitar with nuts, different colors because of the wood underneath. So that was a bit of getting used to. But I told myself, well, this guitar looks, tough and badass, so, live with it. What can I do? The body is made of Niato wood, not Nato, but Niato. To me, it's something that feels like poplar, Asian poplar, maybe something like that. The body is, as far as I can see, 4-piece. The neck is a beautiful satin maple neck, gorgeous shape, rolled edges. I really love the neck. But when I received the guitar, there was a big gap here. And I noticed that actually they unscrewed the 2 top screws here a little bit to make the neck angle a bit different, more forward. And the action was actually excellent. But when I screwed these 2 screws back in the way they should be, the neck was way more back and the strings against the fretboard. So that's something you have to be aware of. Being a Telecaster from a Fender brand, it has, of course, the traditional Telecaster shape. The weight is 3.7 kilograms or about 8 pounds. And yeah, I would say that is an okay weight for a Tele. I have lighter ones and I've seen a lot of heavier ones, I must say, at the same time. When you look at the finish, it's a beautiful satin. When you touch it, you feel maybe tiny, tiny little spots, but really nothing that bothers me. The neck, I think, is very well finished. Look at the headstock. No problems or spots there. Now, if I look a little bit further, you can see that the neck pocket itself is maybe a little bit messy, and also from the inside there was some, wood scraps here and there, and I worked a little bit on the inside of the neck pocket. The pickguard is aluminum, but you can see in the horn here it's a bit uneven, and if you maybe you can see it, you can very clearly feel it. There is this curve here, there is something strange. I think the person that made this pickguard was new on the job, or he didn't care. I don't know, up to him or her. So the binding, there is no binding, but the position markers, they look good, only at the 12th. They are not exactly aligned. The fretboard inlays, as far as I'm concerned, look good. The frets are, according to the description of Fender, narrow, tall. Now to me, that reminds me of very thin vintage frets that are very high and sort of, hurt your fingers. And that's not at all the case. They almost feel like medium jumbos. So nothing to worry about there, I would say. I told you the edges of the fretboard are rolled, and it's a beautiful feeling neck. Now, let's go back to the differences between the Classic Vibe and the 40th anniversary. Everything is a satin finish on this guitar, and on the Classic Vibe that is a gloss finish. It doesn't have a metal pickguard, it has a regular pickguard. The nut on this one is bone. I think on the Classic Vibe it is some sort of artificial material, I don't know what. The hardware has had some sort of treatment to make it look relict, even on the tuning mechanisms. And of course it does have, before I forget that, the 40th anniversary plate here in the back. So those are not, pickups are the same, shape is the same, neck is the same. It's just, the finish that is slightly different. If you have a Classic Vibe and you like a satin finish, you take a little bit of, very, very fine sandpaper. The frets themselves, they were beautifully finished. The fret edges, I think the strings are okay centered. I tested the neck and I checked it with the notched ruler, and the truss rod did, forward, backward, and exactly straight. So that's healthy. There are no weird warps or whatever. So the neck is healthy. But when I received it, on the A string, you couldn't play the first fret. And when I checked it, it was because the second and the third fret were so high that it wouldn't give any sound. So I gave it a level and a crown for these frets and a few other ones which were not really high, but because when I was at it, I was, I just do everything. Intonation I can't really honestly remember because I changed the strings. Now the nut slots were among the best I have ever had out of the box. They were cut at exactly the correct depth, and I only saw that on two Earth guitars, not on Gibsons, not on Fenders, not on many other guitars, not on PRS guitars. So in the neck in general, I think they did a very good job. On the body, they were a bit sloppy here and there. Tuning stability, and I think that is probably due to the well-cut nut, was actually quite good. The pots are full size, no brand. When I checked this, I found it a bit wobbly, the three position blade switch. And when I first had the guitar, it was insanely dark sounding. And whatever you did, what position you put it, it sounded maybe slightly different, but still incredibly dark. So I had to look at the switch. This is the original switch that was in this guitar. And the soldering looked correct. But then I had a more intense look at it. And it seems that somewhere inside something is broken. Because when I measured it, whatever position you put this one, both pickups are always somehow engaged. So I changed this switch to give you the correct sound of this guitar. Pickups are resistance of the neck is 6.5 kilo ohms and of the bridge is 7 kilo ohms. That's pretty normal vintage sound resistances, I would say. Okay, let's go to what I call the comfort part of the guitar. Before we start with that, I want to let you know my handspan. That's about 19 centimeters or 7.5 inches. That way you have a reference point when I talk about neck size or whatever. You know what the size of my hand is. You can measure your own hand and that way get an idea what I'm talking about. Now the radius of this neck, and the radius is the curvature of the fretboard, is 9.5 inches. That is the normal modern Fender radius. The width just below the nut is 43 millimeters. Normally, I would say on the Fender it's 42, but this is quite wide, but because of the rolled edges, you doesn't feel very wide to me at least. That's 1.69 inches, and the width at the 12th fret is 51.5 millimeters or about 2 inches. When I look at the depth, I call this the depth and this the width. The depth at the first fret is 22.5 millimeters or 0.88 inches. That is, nothing special, not crazy thin nor crazy thick. And the depth at the 12th fret is 23 millimeters or about 0.9 inches. So there isn't much difference in depth between the top and the bottom. I like that. I find that comfortable. What makes the neck comfortable is the modern C shape, but especially the rounded shoulders. I think this is one of the nicest necks I have, and as much irritation as this guitar gave me, I love the neck and I kept on playing it. That should give you an idea about how much I liked it. So I would say it's a neck that is probably suitable for everybody and everything. It's very comfortable to play. Now let's look at the action. Now the action is the distance between the top of the 12th fret and the bottom of the string over it, usually measured at the 12th fret, of course, in the low and the high E string. Out of the box, it was a little bit more than 1.6 millimeters, which is really very, very good. But as I told you in the previous section, they unscrewed those two screws here a bit to make the neck angle a little bit more forward. And that caused the 1.6. If you put the screws all the way how they should be, the neck was too far back, the neck angle was too far back, and you wouldn't get any sound at all. I just have to mention that again so you're aware of these things. Having put a little shim, a little piece of wood here, the action is now perfect the way I like it. It's 1.5 at the moment. Let me see if I can show that to you in some very awkward way. Those are millimeters. Is this going to work or not? No, I hope you have an idea. So that's actually all pretty good. High frets, there were two. You couldn't play the first fret of the A string because 2 and 3 were too high, so I worked on that. So do you need a luthier for this guitar? The nut, by the way, was the best cut nut and it's bone that I ever had. So in general, the neck itself didn't have a lot of problems, just two little bit high frets that needed some work. Do you need a luthier for this guitar? Yes. Do you need a luthier for all Squiers? I doubt it because I see in general very positive reviews. I think I might have just bad luck. Okay, let's listen to this guitar. I use amp captures like neural DSP or whatever, that kind of system, and impulse responses for the speakers. There's no effect there, just a tiny bit of delay. I don't think you would even notice it. And by the way, in all my tests, I use exactly the same sound settings. The only things I may change are the volume or tone settings on the guitar itself. The setting on both pickups. Let's see. Now both the tone pot and the volume pot are full. Tone pot at 75%, tone pot at about 50%, and tone pot at 0. So that one does work. Let's look at the volume. Volume at 75%, volume at 50%, that's nothing. Volume at 25%. So the volume basically stops somewhere at 70–80%. Okay, let's start with the neck pickup. That's pretty dark. The tone is full. Both pickups. Bridge. Bridge with the tone at 75%. I think the neck is very dark and the bridge is actually quite nice, at least not ice-picky. Okay, we will start with the Fender Bassman with a silver face and no gain or hardly any gain. Both pickups. Country. Same amp, a little bit more gain. Let's move to the neck pickup and see what we can do with that sound. Okay, some Albert King. Okay, Marshall GMP 2203 clean. Okay, we move on to the same Marshall, but then with more gain. Okay, we go to the neck, see how that goes. Now the same PV5150, but on the bridge pickup. Does this ever stop? Okay, what do we think about this guitar? We just did a sound check and we heard that the neck pickup sounds pretty muffled, and the bridge actually doesn't have this irritatingly bright sound that several cheap Teles have. So I think the bridge is actually quite useful and the neck is too muffled. I do like the response and the feel of the guitar, and the best positions I think is the middle position, maybe with the tone rolled back a little bit, and or not, and the bridge position with the tone rolled back to about 75%, 80%. I think the neck alone is really too muddy to use. Now, if you use modelers, you heard how many different sounds you can get out of a guitar. The sustain was okay, especially if you listen to the last sound clip, the metalish sounding one. So sound, yeah, not bad for the price, I would say. Now, I told you I have mixed feelings and a pleasant surprise about this guitar. Let's start with the positive. I love the neck. I love the way it feels. The nut is one of the best out of the box. The action after having shimmed the neck is good. And I kept the guitar and I like playing it. Now, going to the negatives, the neck pocket was a mess. The two screws here, they undid them a little bit to change the neck angle. I assume it was intentional because the guitar played well. As soon as I tightened the screws, it didn't play anymore because the neck went way back and you didn't hear any sound anymore. So, and the neck pocket was a mess also. There was pieces of wood in it and whatever. Frets were in general very good. 2 and 3 were sticking out too much and you couldn't play the first fret on the A string. So it needed a bit of fret work. Not much, but a little bit. The switch had to be changed and I was a bit disappointed about the different wood colors, but I got over that. So yeah, in the case of this guitar, you would need a luthier to make it playable and it would cost you probably, whatever, €150 or something. What would I change? I would change the pickups because I always do it. The guitar doesn't have shielding. It didn't bother me. I didn't hear any sounds that I didn't like. If it does, it needs shielding with copper tape or whatever. Tuners were enough to tune the guitar, but I like a different ratio, so I would probably change them if I would use the guitar a lot. Now, competition, talking about competition. If I look, for example, at earth guitars, I have several. In terms of fit, finish, pickups, and about everything, they score better than this guitar. And they have the same price, or they're even sometimes a bit cheaper than this one. Still, you can like this guitar. The Harley Benton is €250 less. It's only €150. Now, I would say that the workmanship and the fit and finish on the Harley Benton is in general better than on this guitar. The pickups on the Harley Benton I liked much less. The bridge is very, very bright on the Harley Benton. But when the guitar is set up well and finished, I prefer the way this one plays. Other brands that come to mind are Jet and Sire, Larry Carlton. I didn't try either of them. I might in the future. So what can I recommend about this guitar? It's really hard when you look at all the negatives and all the work I had to do on it and what it would cost you if you don't do the work yourself. I wouldn't recommend the guitar. But I think I was just very unlucky because I hear a lot of positive reviews about the Squiers. So I would say normally you wouldn't probably have the problems that I have. And I love the neck. I love the way the guitar sounds and resonates in my hands. It feels like a good guitar. And honestly, I couldn't stop playing. Is that not because I tried to squeeze out something positive? It's just how it is. I really enjoy playing it because otherwise I would just have sent it back because I bought it new, so I could. So what I would say, if you can do the work yourself, no problem whatsoever. But if you can't, you can potentially buy a great playing guitar and a very enjoyable guitar with a bit maybe of the original Fender DNA, if you believe that. But always buy with a return policy because I would be worried about you otherwise. And maybe if you don't know that much about guitars, check the guitar, go over the guitar with a friend who knows more about guitars. I think that's really important. Anyway, if this review was remotely informative or useful for you, please give me a little bit of your time and press the subscribe button. It would hugely help me, and thank you so much for doing that. I enjoy doing this, and I hope to see you soon next time. In the meantime, have a wonderful life.